2 here on College Football Addiction. Week 3 in the books. Week 4 upcoming. TJ Pittinger, Hannifan Cole Thompson. And let's talk about what happened this weekend and maybe take some bigger picture approaches for each of these. But we sometimes get treats around here, Tom, and a Cole rant is the perfect way to start off an episode. It's the perfect way to start off my Monday. So, Cole, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Let me ask you guys something, just out of curiosity. Where does ESPN get off? Like, where do they have the gall to not only disappoint us with their FPI rankings week in and week out based off of metrics when we've seen teams play actually head-to-head and then still somehow find other rosters being disrespected, but where do they get off when it comes to making major decisions, potentially life-altering mastermind matchup decisions for College Game Day? And I understand that we can talk about what this was. Maybe it was written in stone well in advance. You already signed the contract that was going to be down in Coral Gables. Florida versus Miami. Two sunshine programs that are looking to change the way of the narrative. A big win for Miami. A massive win if you pull off the upset if you're Florida. Billy Napier gets back on the wagon. Things are going right now down in Gainesville. You see the program with the light at the end of the tunnel. They still disappointed. They still were dreadful against LSU. They were dreadful against South Florida. Nothing right now is moving in the right direction. And did you know that there are actually some signature games, ranked unranked matchups I might add in, that you could have gone to? You could have gone to Bloomington, Indiana, where the Hoosiers take on the Fighting Illini. People are saying right now the Illini, they're actually masquerading as a bad team. Who have they played? Who have they gone up against? How dare we give respect to the Illini at this point? Well, they can gain some respect by playing against Indiana. Nah, screw that game. Oxford, Mississippi. You know, a team by the name of Tulane that played against its former quarterback just put belt to ass in their stadium, and now they have an opportunity to get another Power 4 ranked win against a top 15 team that is going to be playing a potential backup quarterback again. Nah, SEC, we're going to go there. The battle for the iron skillet. SMU is turning the corner. TCU is probably one of the most slept-on teams in college football right now. We don't talk about them enough. What their offense has been, how their defense has turned the corner. Now, we don't want to go the Lone Star State. We've already seen too many games out there before. Auburn versus Oklahoma. I get you just were in Norman, so maybe you want to pass on that one. But could I maybe introduce you to Salt Lake City, where you have Utah?
This is the one.
Where you have Utah versus Texas Tech, and we say all the time that we are unable to go ahead and just give respect to the Big 12. Well, you have Baron Morton and Joey McGuire and this Texas Tech Red Raider team that could prove it is the team to beat in the conference versus a Utah team with Kyle Whittingham, who has been one of the most constant poised pedigree coaches in college football, turning the corner at the right time with a revamped offense for what could be a preview of what we get in the Big 12 championship game. Now, we don't want to go out to Salt Lake City. Too boring of a culture out there. But you know what? I can live with all of that if you just want to go ahead and go fall for the clicks. Go to where everyone else is going. The Bussin' Bowl. We got to go see Will Compton versus Taylor Lewan's team do battle and see if Patrick Mahomes 2.0 can take down Bryce Underwood. Nah, screw it. Memorial Stadium, a beautiful environment where the fan base has always been beyond successful, where they've truly looked like that they believe and eat, breathe Huskers football through the dark and trying times, and the light at the end of the tunnel that has finally arisen is here. Nah. Let's go down to Coral Gables. Let's go down to where they don't play on a college football field. Let's go down where they actually do not have a matchup in a real life vicinity because we tore down the Orange Bowl and see Billy Napier and this squad fumble their way through another game. Let's do that one. Shame on you, ESPN. Shame on you for writing the check and being in the big environment rather than going to the heart of the basin where there are great college football matchups. Oh, and if South Carolina wins a football game, Columbia, Missouri, yet another one, another place you could have gone that had so much validity and so much hostility and so much passion and pageantry for our sport. But no, let's just go ahead and go down to a place where we don't even know what time the game is going to be kicking off and if Billy Napier's going to be hired after Sunday morning. But sure, we'll go there instead.
Going to a team that, again, this is not a rail on Florida. I think they have a great chance to go to Tallahassee in a couple of weeks. If Florida State, Miami's a top 7-ish matchup, but Florida is 1-2. It's a 10-point spread right now, and I expect that to rise through the week. Florida's going to get some bad news, I think, today in Billy Napier's press conference. I'm all for Florida. I'm all for the big three being good. To some degree, right? Like, you don't want your rivals to do well, but like, there's excitement. I mean, I was planning on going to this game at certain points through the offseason. I'm not now because it just seems like hell to have to miss all of college football Saturday to watch a blowout. But man, the idea of like, this team is 1-2 and let's go see what they've got going on down there. And I get it. Miami's a big brand. Florida's an SEC team. It is a rivalry. But man, you got to have a little bit more. You got to have better sense to pivot here. Again, that Big 12 game, Texas Tech, the darling of the offseason, Utah seems to be much better than they were a year ago and trending up in the right direction. That one would be such a good one to go to really showcase football across the country. They are very likely, and they know this, very likely going to a blowout. And maybe there was a travel thing where they couldn't get the copter up to take Kirk. I don't know, man. Just the it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And as somebody who likes football in this state, we'll watch that game for sure and point and laugh at somebody. I don't understand this decision. And maybe the idea was to go to Columbia. Maybe that Vandy result is what shifted it off, but it seems like there are better options than this. I would not even care if they went back to Norman. That would not even bother me, man. You've got the Heisman front runner and the other team's bringing in the guy that played there last year. Like, that's a great storyline. I wouldn't be upset if you went back to Norman. There are a lot of good things out here that you could go and look at. And USC, I know Michigan State's not the same. USC is playing. There's 2 3-0 teams playing out in Southern California, right? Like, there's a lot of things you could have done here, and this feels like about the worst one you could have picked.
I will say this, having worked with a variety of people that still work at ESPN and Fox, and just kind of understanding how these decisions are made. They do not care how you feel. They don't. They don't care.
We're going to tune in.
All of these elements, and that's the irony about where we're at with college football and all the things we talked about in the offseason from a business standpoint, the television networks, all these things. Every Sunday or Monday, you see a graphic of best viewership ever or something like that. Unfortunately, people will still continue to watch this. ESPN is not in the business of honoring what the fan feels and what the fan believes. They are in the business of hyping and causing as much anticipation as humanly possible so that you will watch the game. They do not care what the ultimate outcome is of the game. They just care that you watch it, period. ESPN and Fox are the same way. So my message to college football fans is don't allow College Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff to tell you what the biggest game of the week is. Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Whatever the biggest game of the week is to you is where it should be. Okay. So sorry that this doesn't go the right way, but yeah, Miami should shellac Florida in this game. And it's just a place where they're going to do the game this weekend. It's not what I like. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to all the points we just said. But from a business standpoint, eyeballs, you got the 4th best team in the country right now in Miami. I forget what the ranking is. And Florida, I think the negativity around Florida is more attractive than the positivity that Florida could possibly attract. I think that's the polarity that they're trying to play with in this.
Listen to your heart and listen to the power too is the only thing I would adjust from Tom's.
Don't listen to Cokie Riley. Oh, I want to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
If you listen to Cokie Riley and if you take his voting for the AP poll as gospel, I weep for you. Cokie Riley deserves to have his AP voter status revoked. He put out an explanation, which TJ, thank you very much for sending along to me. I do not accept your explanation, Cokie. It is horrific. You need to be ranking these teams based on the performance we have seen this year. If you're basing anything on the preseason poll, which is entirely based off of, we think this is what they might be this coming year, and this is what they were last year, that doesn't make any sense. The staff, the roster, they all change. It's not the same freaking team. It's the same brand and logo next to them. In what universe is Michigan better than Alabama or Florida State at this point in time? Are you stoned? Notre Dame hasn't won a game and they're number 10? I understand, yes, they've lost to top 10 teams. So, like, I'm also in that camp of this is confusing. Like, where do you put these guys? It's tough. I, as a Penn State diehard, somebody who went there, I do a podcast about it called State of State, a Penn State football show presented by FanDuel, wherever you get your podcast, with myself and Justin King, shameless plug. I have watched every game Penn State has played this year. They are not the best team in the country. They're the third best team in the Big Ten. Koki Riley, you are awful at voting. Stop doing it. Follow Haley Sawyer's route and just stop sending in your polls. Idiot.
At least her explanation last week was very much like, hey,
she
I don't know what to say. His was somehow worse.
His was he tried to explain it. And listen, that's what the guys on the Cover 3 said. It's like, hey, explain your vote.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. Haley Sawyer, if you read between the lines of what she said, was basically, F you don't deserve to know how I feel about this and how I put this together. I get to vote and you don't, and it doesn't really matter. And shocking that she didn't put in a ballot this week. Amazing.
I mean, at least he gave you an explanation. I mean, I give credit where credit's due. He gave an explanation.
Appreciate it.
It's wrong.
Judge, jury, and executioner, I accept your explanation, but I am completely kicking it out of court because it makes no sense. No water.
No. We appreciate the explanation. We don't accept it.
Oh, yes. We appreciate it. We do not accept it.
We appreciate the try. It doesn't mean that we accept it. I'm sorry.
It's the Bart Simpson meme of at least you tried. Like, here's the cake and then throw it in the trash.
Just stop voting.
Speaking of trying, I think we're going to do something a little bit different this week and go, you guys know what happened in these games. So less of a recap, more of a big picture after some of the biggest games of the week. We'll see how you guys like this. And if you hate it, then we'll pivot away from it. But Notre Dame A&M, the night game on Saturday night on NBC. Notre Dame gets them to a 4th and 11. And I've seen Gruden complaining about the holding call. Maybe I won't go so deep into that side. But let's start with, I don't mind starting with the losers. I'm not Josh Pate. Is Notre Dame still going to make the playoffs? If they go 10-2, my take is no matter what USC does, I do think Notre Dame's brand and logo are big enough, but obviously their margin for error right now is razor thin. I do think they've lost to two really good teams. What's the outlook for Notre Dame? Midwest kind of. So we'll go Tom here first.
Tommy.
I was watching some coverage from, the Dan Le Batard show, because they obviously cover a lot with Miami, and they're like, all right, what does this mean for Notre Dame? And the argument back and forth is they don't deserve to be ranked because they have not won a college football game in 2025. I understand that point. You also look at the competition that they have played and how close they have played that competition. They played Miami very tough, and they obviously just lost a very tough game versus Texas A&M. So the quality of competition versus some of the other teams that have been in the top 10, top 15 this year, considering that stuff, it is a complicated situation. Here's the truth of the matter. Notre Dame, very strong possibility to run the table the rest of the way in what is a pretty easy schedule. It's not exactly the NIU debacle of last year. It's inverted almost. You lost to such a horrible team last year in NIU that people are like, what in the world is this? You lost to Miami and Texas A&M. There is really no shame in that. Probably the future ACC champion, and Texas A&M could vie for the SEC championship. You never know what could happen. I think there's still a really strong chance that Notre Dame will finish 10-2, 9-3 at the worst. I need to pull up their schedule here in just a minute. I don't know it off the top of my head, but
I got it.
You understand, we all need to understand that the brand means a lot to the college football playoff. So as long as you do enough work to C's get degrees, basically, 10-2, 9-3 for Notre Dame will get you in the CFP.
So here's their schedule the rest of the way. Purdue at Arkansas.
Arkansas game, before you go on, that is trickier than people are going to expect. I know we don't do a ton on Arkansas, but they're a late turnover away from winning in the Grove this weekend. Like, that game is trickier than people think. Sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, but also Taylor Green. Just how many college football
insane.
Many college football programs right now are sitting here and wondering, if we just would have made him an offer he couldn't refuse, would we be a playoff team? Because if he is the offense right now out there. All right, so the schedule for the rest of the year. Purdue at Arkansas, Boise State, NC State, USC, Boston College, Navy, at Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. There's two things that you need to know about this. Number one, Notre Dame no longer controls its destiny to the college football playoff. They just don't. They cannot afford another loss. I have always been a proponent. It's not about the 3 losses. It's about the 10 wins. It will always be about 10 wins. Double-digit wins just looks better for a resume. It looks better for you to be able to have a more solid background. They no longer control their own path, so they have to win out. They do that. The branding, the ambiance, the atmosphere, the coaching style, that's all going to play a factor. And let's just call a spade too. Having highlight names in the playoff is wonderful for marketing. Yep. Jeremiah Love had 2 exceptional touchdowns, but Jadarian Price also showed you why he is a difference maker at this position and why this may be the most dense backfield in college football. And they have stars and they have talent. So I think that's going to play a major role. The other thing is you still need Texas A&M and Miami to hold up its end of the bargain. Because of you were able to run the table last year and go 11-1 with a horrendous loss to an NIU team. If somehow Texas A&M falls short and goes 7-5, does that loss look worse on the resume when comparing it to maybe a 10-2 team from the SEC, or a 10-2 Georgia Tech squad, or a 10-2 Clemson squad, where Georgia Tech ends up winning the ACC, they play for the ACC title, and LSU wins the SEC? So you have a job to do, but those wins also have to continue to look better for Texas A&M and Miami. It's possible. It's very possible. And I'm not writing off Notre Dame whatsoever. CJ Carr, he's lived up to the billing so far as a quarterback, having to play 2 very intensified defenses. You saw growth and maturity when it came to the play calling from Mike Denbrock. They were a 4th down stop away from getting a win and this being a moot point. But regardless, there are things that need to change from the sideline, and most specifically the defensive side of Notre Dame if they want to be able to show that they can hold their own against USC, they can play well against NC State, they can slow down Arkansas, but you also got to be able to make sure that you maintain wins. Like at this point, the jury is out on what we think of Notre Dame. I don't have them ranked right now because if I can't in good conscience put an 0-2 team into my top 25. I can leave them around the outside. Win a football game against Purdue, you're right back in because then at least you have a win. But regardless, I can't do that. If you just are able to show me what you showed against 2 very potent and rising teams in college football the rest of the year, Notre Dame's in. Branding aside, I don't think you can punish a team that lost to 2 opponents that may or may not also be punching their ticket to the postseason.
And we were told in the offseason that quality losses, God, I feel sick saying that because college football used to be about excellence. Mm-hmm. We were told that quality losses wouldn't hurt teams, and I do think that that's not the end all be all, but with the committee coming out and saying that, they're going to look for a reason. Like Cole said, they're going to look for a reason to put these big brands in. Yeah. Right. There's no doubt about it. Notre Dame's got maybe the biggest brand in all of college football when you really think about it. If they're 10-2, now 9-3, I think it's hairy. If they're 10-2, I do think that's I'll say it right now. They go 10-2, they're in. Now they might host a home playoff game. They might be on the road, based on other records. But they'll get in at 10-2. On the other side of that we'll go to Cole here. Is Texas A&M, did they show you enough in this game to make you think that they are a legit competitor in the SEC this season?
Yes and no. So let me explain. Let's start with this. Credit where credit's due. And I've compared this scenario for a while now to somebody buying a pre-existing owned house. That was what you got with Mike Elko taking on over for Jimbo Fisher in 2024. It takes about a year for you to rid the remnants of the previous owner. And it could just be little things like a stain on the carpet. It could be a chip in the back porch. It could be the lingering smell from a cigarette that was lit back there because he was a former smoker. Just little things like that. It lingers for about a year before you finally make it feel like that it's your home. It's always been your home. And that was Texas A&M last season. The same hindrances, the same mistakes, the same issues that we constantly saw underneath Jimbo Fisher were on display and evident for Mike Elko's first season. That's no longer the case. The culture is there. This is a Mike Elko-led team. It's no nonsense. It's physical. They get to the football. They play the way that they practice. They don't phase. They don't flinch. Marcel Reed did not have an elite game, but he had elite moments in the game that allowed Texas A&M to respond. Had that interception really early on after the Mario Craver touchdown, never panicked. Had that big kickoff return that was called back on a holding play, never panicked. Had that big fourth down stop, nearly threw an interception on third down, never panicked. 360 yards on the day, 2 passing touchdowns, including the big touchdown at the end of Nate Borkature. Just a moment to where it feels like we got a quarterback that now is delivering. They also have wide receivers that are delivering. Can either of you tell me the last time Texas A&M had a 1,000-yard receiver?
I'd guess Mike Evans.
2013. That will change this year. Derek Miller, GM of Texas A&M, give him a brand new contract extension, because to be able to go out and guarantee that we were going to get 2 elite players in Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion to pair alongside with the rising star in Terry Bussey has been phenomenal. The ground game is back. You saw the physicality of Lavian Moss. You saw the physicality of this offensive line. And that's something that I think is going to be so prevalent when you face off against some of these daunting teams, when you have to go toe-to-toe with Texas's defense, when you have to go toe-to-toe against a revamped Auburn, when you have to go toe-to-toe against still a South Carolina team, or better yet, on the road to a Mizzou squad that right now is playing with fire and has an offensive identity and a spark that you can be combative against. The thing that I worry about is, number one, can this defense still be fixed? You give up 34 points. Now, one was, again, the block punt, so it wasn't 40 points. You gave it 34 points. That's not going to work in the SEC. It simply isn't. The other thing is you gave up over 385 yards of offense. That's also not going to work. And we watched as Mike Elko lost his bleeping mind and was throwing chairs 50 miles an hour on the sideline, and that was necessary. So I think it can be corrected. But the two things I worry about is that if this defense, you're going to have to trust your offense to be explosive on every single game to win, it's eventually going to come back to bite you, because you're going to get a defense that can slow you down. The other thing is, I know Texas A&M wakes up for these big games, the ones where there are numbers attached to the other team's logo, and you think that they are going to have a moment to deliver. And it was a win, and it was a statement win for Mike Elko, and it was a statement win for a program that hasn't been able to prove it can win on the road. Plain victory. My fear is, are you going to show up when the lights aren't at the brightest? Because that's been A&M's fault. They'll go into Starkville against an unranked Mississippi State team, and they'll look inferior. They'll play with their food against Arkansas far too long, and they'll come down to the wire. They'll struggle against, say, an Appalachian State. That's been the narrative around this Texas A&M squad. So I think the Texas 8-4 joke is over this year. They have a top 15 offense that's going to be able to put points on the board and deliver efficiently. I think 9-3 is still a possibility, just because I got to see more from their defense. But credit where credit's due. You got a quarterback, you got 2 exceptional wide receivers, and you have a ground game. That will keep you afloat in every single matchup.
Their schedule looks pretty fun. A lot of good matchups on here. They got a bye week before Auburn comes to town. We don't know what the heck Florida will be at that point, or if they'll have a coach. But Florida comes to town. How does that kind of prolific offense look against a really good Florida defense, though the rest of Florida is kind of a mess right now? Going to Arkansas, LSU on the road as well. They got to go see Bo up at Missouri. South Carolina, have they figured it out by then? And then culminating in Texas. A lot of winnable games, but a lot of games that you can't take your foot off the gas if you've got A&M's schedule this year. All right, Gabe, I hope this isn't the case, because it was just week 3. But I was jealous of your boy Chris Cole when he was in Knoxville, because that seemed like it might be the game of the year when it's all said and done. I hope I'm wrong on that. I hope something else. I hope it happens in Tallahassee in 3 weeks. But I think that might be the game of the year. And man, what a time we had watching Tennessee and Georgia. Let's start with UGA. We will start with the winner here. Did a lot of your questions about Georgia get answered? Because they did for me. I mean, they're the favorite to win the SEC at this point. No shocker with Kirby Smart there. But I certainly feel better about Georgia. We'll talk about Tennessee in a minute, but thought they looked pretty good.
I think with Georgia, the most important factor that stands out is Georgia, even when it's not perfect, never panics.
Yeah.
Georgia has an identity that always is cool, calm, collective. And I truly view Kirby Smart as that veteran pool player at a college bar, where he's just sitting around the table and you'll let a bunch of college kids show up and they'll go, hey, this is my table. I'll play you for it. Okay. You let them have the ball first. You let them go ahead and make a shot. You're okay with playing with stripes. And you let them make the mistakes. And then when you see your opportunities, Move it right down the field efficiently, and you win, and you say, next man, next guy up. That's all it is. That was how you felt about Georgia. Gunnar Stockton, a lot of people owe him an apology. Man was wheeling and dealing. Nobody is going to complain about a 360-yard, 3-touchdown day and a beautiful 4th down call to London Humphreys in the front pylon of the end zone. Nobody's going to complain about that. Nobody's going to complain about the physicality that you had with running the football. There are some things you got to clean up defensively, and I think that it will because of, again, this is Kirby Smart. He is a defensive-minded coach. He will never allow his defense to be that complacent again, ever, the rest of the year. And they still got games against Alabama. They still got games against Auburn. But the part that won me over in this game more efficiently was the first drive out of the third quarter. 14 plays, 13 runs. They took 8 minutes off the clock. They said, we can win with speed and finesse. We have wide receivers that we trust. We have an offensive line that's a little bit banged up right now. But you know what? We can also win with tempo and physicality in the trenches. Slow us down on the ground and make us throw the football. And if you can't, we're going to trust this in our back pocket. And that is Georgia's calling card. That is the ace in the hole that makes Georgia different. Defensively, they can get a couple stops. They can get the ball back. The play calling at times, a little bit hit and miss from Mike Bobo. I completely understand if Georgia fans want to complain a little bit. But overall, you show that you have wide receivers that can win on one-on-one matchups. You show that Zachariah Branch was worth every penny in the portal because of the way that he complements Colby Young, the way he complements Oscar Delp, London Humphreys. It doesn't matter. He is the yin to their yang. But you also still have the identity that has made Georgia one of the most prolific teams in college football for over a decade. They can run the football. They can ground and pound it. They can take time off the clock, and they can force you to have to play up tempo. And they did that, and that is ultimately what won the game. Kirby said that they did not deserve to win the game because they were the second best team on the field. But I hate to break it to you. Yes, you did. Because of in moments like that where you can panic and it feels like that you're going to hear the bell and it's a knockout punch, you find a way to respond. Elite teams do that. And that's still what makes Georgia, Georgia.
Honestly, this game was illuminating for me in that I believe I picked Georgia to win this, but Tennessee showed up in a big way. The things that they need to work on, obviously, I think there's something there with the running game. It's a Josh Heupel flaw that he just abandons it, and his instinct is to go for the jugular. And obviously in that first quarter, Tennessee just came out firing. And then just as the game went on, Tennessee got away from the running game. And you saw how the inverse happened for Georgia. They never went away from it. 55 rushing attempts for Georgia in this game. And they got a lot of help from a lot of guys. I don't think this is the same offensive line talent that we've gotten used to from Georgia over the years, but the commitment to it, that steady presence. Gunnar Stockton just doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't put the football in bad places. Is he going to light up the world and, be a Heisman candidate? No, but he is steady Eddie, and that's exactly what Georgia needs at the helm. So that is great. But Tennessee, for me, they just need to find the ability to finish, and that's the hardest thing to find in college football. I like what they put on tape defensively for the first half. I like what their defensive line is capable of. Joey Aguilar has to get rid of the grenade, just throwing off his back foot and throwing a moon ball up there, because you had so many instances in the first half where Georgia's defensive backs just fell down, were out of position, you're drawing a penalty, that sort of thing. But they got smart in the second half, and Georgia responded really, really well with that. Listen, Tennessee, their schedule sets up pretty nicely for the next few weeks, and that it's UAB, at Mississippi State versus Arkansas. At Alabama is going to be a good test. At Kentucky, it's a struggling Wildcats team, but defensively, you never know when they can bow up. That game against Oklahoma is really intriguing. At Florida, doesn't seem to have the same bite that it used to. And then finishing the year at Vanderbilt. It does set up nicely for Tennessee to continue to be competitive and in the race to potentially get to the SEC championship game. They need to harness a lot of the explosivity that they captured today. Joey Aguilar needs to become much more consistent. That variance has got to come down. There's still a lot of App State in him that thinks he can get away with some of these things. Not going to be able to do that in the SEC. But the schedule seems to set up nicely based on the Tennessee team we saw this past weekend at Neyland.
Now, I will push back on two things. Number one, with the Florida game, Tennessee just has a problem playing in the Swamp. They haven't been there in 20 years. So, it doesn't matter how good the roster is. It doesn't matter how bad Florida is. if you go to Gainesville, they've had struggles winning out there. The other thing is that as much as we want to talk about the way that Joey Aguilar had his faults and he had those 2 costly turnovers, here's an interesting stat for you boys. He had the best first quarter against Kirby Smart defense in the history of college football. Over 200 passing yards, 11 first downs, completion percentage of 91%, 3 total touchdowns. And he also had a third down conversion rate of 88%. I mean, let me just make this abundantly clear. The quarterbacks that have gone up against Kirby Smart in his history are playing in the NFL. They're Heisman Trophy winners. They are future MVPs. And Joey Aguilar, with Glenn Schumann as a secondary element to that, made mincemeat of them in the first half. It was just the faulty insecurities at ill-advised times that really hurt Tennessee in this matchup. The 2 turnovers were costly. I hated the play design after the fumble on Gunnar Stockton. 3 straight runs. It's a free drive. This is where you go for the jugular, Josh Heupel. This is the moment you take those shots downfield. And then the missed field goal. I understand if he makes the kick in regulation. He's a hero. I had a bigger problem with Heupel after the false start by Sam Pendleton not running another play. I felt like that even if it was a play that could have just barely gotten an extra yard, you still should have gotten back in closer range. That's just me personally. It just felt like in that moment, you needed to take a little bit more time off the clock.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just because of he didn't have a lot of faith in his kicker. I don't know if you pan on over to the kicker. He felt like he wanted to be anywhere else but on the field when he was about ready to make the kick. But I felt like that was a moment. The thing with Tennessee right now, I will say, I know that my voice sounds like shit. Tennessee reminds me a lot of Mark Richt's Georgia, where they're right there, 10-2. You'll be in the college football playoff. Like Richt would have gone to the playoff, 7, 8 times if they would have had a 12-team playoff back when he was coaching in Athens. But you just didn't get over the hump. Now, the good news is I don't know if you're going to see another version of Georgia on your schedule the rest of the year. You don't know what Florida is. You don't know what Oklahoma is entirely. We'll know more about those teams later on. Alabama, you got to go travel down to Tuscaloosa. We've seen them be susceptible to giving up big explosive plays. Is that still going to be relevant when you play in October? So you're not going to be going up against a team like Georgia. But you got to make sure that also when you have the opportunity to go for the jugular, you don't play with your food. Because if that was a problem with Mark Richt, you were always a good enough team to be in the race for Tier 2 of the SEC. And nobody's complaining about Tier 2 in the SEC. Still a playoff team. To be a national championship one and on the level of Alabama and Georgia, when they have an opportunity to go for the jugular, they take it. They slice it up and they walk away and they don't care. That's where Tennessee is at right now. Not a problem. The way that Tennessee is, Josh Heupel is a phenomenal coach. Phenomenal coach and nobody needs to be blaming him right now. But there is right now a ceiling and feels like that you just can't get through. You got to break through that ceiling.
Last year, they were able to do it by winning some big games. Their big games this year, Tom mentioned it, at Alabama against Oklahoma. They got to figure out a way to get that Gainesville monkey off their back and then Vandy at the end. But yeah, you can't slip up. You know, we talked about this with A&M. You can't slip up against Taylor Green in Arkansas. You can't go into Starkville and drop that matchup. You can't lose. I mean, really, again, getting the Florida monkey off your back, you really can't lose to Florida or Vandy too. All credit to Diego Pavia and Vandy, what they did this weekend. But if you're Tennessee, those have to be wins, right? And so now you beat Oklahoma and Alabama and lose to Florida. Yeah, you're probably still fine. But yeah, their ceiling is there, and a return to the college football playoff, if you play as well as you did against Georgia, is certainly exists. But I mean, it's hard to play as well as you do in every single. I mean, it's hard to do that 12 weeks out of the year, and so I thought there's a lot to be hopeful for Tennessee. I certainly know they don't want to play the moral victory game after a loss, but there's a lot that they need to clean up and kind of get right before they do. Let's talk about some coaches that are struggling. But before we do that, I will give some love to Sleeper. We play the Sleeper more or less game every single Wednesday. We'll do it again this week when the stats are out, when the picks are available. You can pair more or less of 2 or more players and win literally up to 1,000 times your money. Go to the Sleeper app, use our code CFA for 100% match up to $100. I was in there yesterday in an eliminator league. I've made it through 2 weeks of the NFL season. Not that impressive, but there have been weeks that I've lost week 1. So go check out the eliminator leagues. Go check out the pick'ems. Obviously, a lot of people have their fantasy football through the Sleeper app. Their score bug is great. They do a great job with just updating the scores of everything. I was watching Barcelona's score bug while I was watching Red Zone yesterday on the TV. So go check them out. Terms and conditions apply. Make sure you see their terms of use for details. Some coaching moves already happening. I don't know if I've seen it happen after week 3 that I can remember. Maybe it has, and you guys can correct me, but it feels early. Brent Pry out at Virginia Tech after getting just absolutely murdered by Old Dominion. And then UCLA off to an awful start too. It seems like Tennessee certainly won that trade with Nico and Joey, but UCLA with more issues than just the quarterback at this moment. And then we'll talk about those too, but then the heat is up in Gainesville for sure. We'll talk about that game specifically on Wednesday, but who wants to start us out? Tom's a Virginia Tech guy, kind of quasi. I don't know if I was allowed to leak that or not, but he said in the group chat, so it's coming out now.
But I was going to say by proxy of Brent Pry at Penn State once upon a time. So no, but yeah, Virginia Tech's always just been one of those brands that I'm like, yeah, I want good things for them. Like Frank Beamer and company, they did things the right way for a very long time. I love their style of play. And it's a shame to see a program that had a lot of success for many, many years be in this type of shape where it's tough to watch. I'm not surprised they moved on from Brent Pry. I am surprised that they did it this early in the season, like mid-September. The opportunity to have the transfer portal open for your team is something these programs are absolutely thinking about. And the sooner that you can get whomever that next head coach is installed so you can get ahead on the eventual actual transfer portal window, the offseason, recruiting, NIL, everything, they've got to get a jump on that. So I understand why these things are happening early. And Brent Pry's had 4 years. The Deshaun Foster one was interesting and surprising to me because one, like clearly he is heartbroken that his alma mater, a program he cares about, let him go after, was it a year? Like a little over a year as the head coach?
Less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years. I mean, that's astonishing at the college football level. And especially like my thought was, does UCLA care this much about football? And at least by this firing, they're attempting to indicate that the answer is yes. It always felt like Deshaun Foster was hired as kind of a, well, this'll do type of hire because of the Chip Kelly debacle. He left so close to the season. They had to get somebody in, and Deshaun Foster felt right for the program, for the university. But I don't think anybody in Los Angeles was like, Deshaun Foster is going to take us to the promised land. So I never felt that way. Clearly the spending on Nico and clearly this firing to me indicate a university that is like, we are going to prioritize football. And frankly, it's a university that athletically needs to take a step forward in a lot of departments. It's predominantly a school where you're like, oh, their Olympic sports are great. Everybody talks about basketball, of course, but the images of the Rose Bowl, the attendance was atrocious. And it was not even the attendance. It was just the support is completely lacking. There's nothing to really get behind with UCLA football. And then I've said many times over the last few weeks, and I have pinpointed a date. I think Billy Napier will be fired on October 5th. Like, I just don't think there's much longer for him. And especially the comparisons that I made to Anthony Richardson and DJ Lagway, like, tell me when I'm telling lies, guys. I'm sorry to be right all the time with this stuff, but damn. So I don't know. It's tough in Florida. Cole, what do you think? When do you think they get rid of Napier?
I think it's after the second bye week. I think that it's not after this first one when it comes to the Texas game. I think it'll be a little bit later after that because again, still you want to keep the window open. So Tom's in charge of doing these things of explaining where these programs are. I'm in charge of telling you head coaching candidates because these are going to be two jobs that could be very prolific, and with the right person in charge, things could turn the corner. Let's start off with Virginia Tech. I got 3 names for you. Number 1, it's Bob Chesney at James Madison. The way that he has been able to take the Dukes in Kirk Cignetti's place, they're a favorite once again to win the Sun Belt this year. They feel like that they have an identity. He's been great at the Division II level when he was at Holy Cross. They had a 9-4 record last season. They had a massive win last year over North Carolina. He's somebody who I think can build a program with the right footing. He doesn't need a lot of outside noise. It's somebody who I think has an identity and is able to retain a bunch of talent and build a program in the right direction. So I think he's on a short list of names. I know a lot of people are going to say Shane Beamer. From what I've gathered and talking to people out in Columbia, he wants to create his own legacy. He wants to do what Frank did and turn South Carolina into a Virginia Tech. So he's not a name that I think you have to look after. South Florida's Alex Golesh. Until further notice, he's going to get mentioned for more jobs out there. Well, he should, because of how he's turned the identity of the program around down in Tampa. But regardless, they're going to have to get his gauge. They're going to have to speak his interests with more NIL properties, with a higher level of recruiting resources. His coaching demeanor and his offensive identity is going to allow you to turn this into a program of sustainability and could end up being really prominent. The third name, and one that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but I will continue to praise his graces as much as possible. Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky deserves so much respect for the ability to see coordinator and quarterback turnover and never miss a beat. I mean, he went from having Zach Kitley as his offense coordinator and Bailey Zappi as his quarterback to then bringing in Ben Arbuckle and Austin Reed. And then Arbuckle gets a job and he lands another OC who gets another opportunity elsewhere. And then this upcoming year, he lands the guy from Abilene Christian. He brings in Maverick McIver as his quarterback. And once again, they're a team that's going to be favored to win in the Conference USA. And he constantly has the Hilltoppers in the running for conference titles and 9+ wins and top 15 scoring offenses. It feels like the time has finally come for him to be able to get that Power 4 job. If they win the Conference USA this year, it feels like there's very little left for him to prove. I would love to see him at a major program. I think that Blacksburg would be great for him. UCLA, it's a little interesting because I don't think they have the resources right now. I don't think that they have the buy-in from the fan base right now. And I don't think that they're going to be spending a lot of money until we start to see the results on the field. So who are some names that you could probably target? First one, TJ, I hate doing this to you, but you may be out of a defense coordinator. Tony White, UCLA alum. He has ties to the program. He was the runner-up for the job, according to multiple reports, after Deshaun Foster. So you know what his culture is. You know what his balance is. You know what his identity is. You know what he wants as a coordinator. You know what he wants to build as a program's identity. If it was almost there when you almost hired him over Deshaun Foster, it's still going to be there. Dan Mullen at UNLV right now. I think that the big reason that we are doubting him is because of, well, he didn't want to recruit out of Florida. He didn't want to recruit to that standard. He didn't want to have to put so much of an emphasis on building relationships with high school players. He just wants to call plays. He just wants to be a head coach. College football has changed since he was at Florida. And the expectations are not as high when it comes to the recruiting aspect of things. I think that we can all agree here that Dan Mullen is probably going to go down as one of the most successful coaches at Mississippi State for what he was able to accomplish. The expectations at a place like UCLA on the recruiting aspect, 9-day difference. It's all about the play calling. And honestly, if there's anybody that could probably get the best version of Nico Iamaleava out, it would be Dan Mullen because of what he's done working with the quarterback position in the past with Dak Prescott and Kyle Trask. And even you could throw in an Anthony Richardson for that matter. So you could throw in multiple plays. So that's where we are when it comes to his identity. I think that's something that is going to be very prevalent at that point. And the third name is Will Stein, offensive coordinator of Oregon. The way that he has been able to build an offensive personnel, reaching new heights. Once again, he understands. He comes from a good coaching background. He's been around the block at major institutions. He's learned underneath Dan Lanning. He's learned underneath Tom Herman. He's learned from some of the biggest names in the industry on what it takes to do a program right and what it doesn't take to do a program right. So I think that there's a lot of offensive personnel things that he wants to do, a lot of attachment, and they give him a contract to really build this year. There's so much to like about his progress to where I think he could come on in and build a sustainable culture. The wild card of them all, the coach that just won on Saturday, Jason Eck. Jason Eck is a phenomenal name who has been building a great resume out at Idaho and what he's doing currently at 3-0 down in New Mexico. He will be a name to watch for at the Power 4 level. Maybe not this year, but in the next 2 years, I think he'll be there.
I kind of agree with you on so all of that included, go to the Florida thing for just a moment. I kind of agree with you that they won't do it until later, unless things get really, really bad. Like if Miami steamrolls them, and which is possible, we'll talk about on Wednesday. And then, I mean, Texas looks like one of the more winnable games on their schedule now. If Texas clicks and does the same thing at home, I suppose I could see it happening prior to that. But with the portal opening, that creates such an interesting dynamic. Well, yeah, for Florida especially. Virginia Tech, not their most talented roster. UCLA, obviously there's some talent deficiencies there. So I think at UCLA, you're less worried about the portal opening because, shoot, they're a 2-10 team this year. Best case scenario anyway, right? Like, who cares? Same thing for Virginia Tech. What bowl eligible was maybe their goal to start the year. Like, what? Who cares that you? But Florida, man, if they were to do it after this Miami game, how many guys? They love Billy Napier there. Like, the one thing he's done a really good job of is recruiting and getting guys to lock in. They don't have a lot of portal guys jumping out every year. They don't have people leaving. I could see that going really, really poorly, and I could see them holding on to him for longer. Because who cares, right? Like, do you want to, if you're Florida, like, do you want to try and scrounge a way to a bowl or get close to it, get to 4, 5, 6 wins, as opposed to a bunch of guys jumping in the portal potentially and winning 2 or 3. So I think
it's October 5th. It's the day after the Texas game for me, because I don't think they're going to beat Miami, and I think they lose to Texas. I don't think it's badly. Like, Texas looks flimsy, but I think Texas gets it together and wins that game ultimately. If you lose 4 out of 5 to start the season and the playoff is gone, what else are you playing for as a player? Like, seriously, other than pride.
There'll be enough booster pressure to do it, I think, at that point. If they're 1-5,
I just don't see the team quitting on Billy. And I think that's going to be something that makes it helps him keep his job until November.
Another coaching name I want to throw out there. I doubt that UCLA would be able to drag him back, considering Lincoln Riley has made it clear he wants to keep him at USC. But Danton Lynn, somebody Penn State tried to grab last offseason to try and get him as their defensive coordinator. USC upped his compensation. Good for him. He's a very good defensive coordinator, was at UCLA before. I don't know if Lincoln Riley would let him go, considering USC has more pressure on it. Lincoln Riley has more pressure on him to get that thing moving in the right direction.
You mentioned Tony White too. There is some concern there. I will tell you this. My concern level is not incredibly high for 2 reasons. One, I thought Tony White came in here to do a really good job and leave in 2 years to be a head coach. I don't think he was looking for like a long-term coordinator. Like, I think it would suck if it went down to 1 year instead of 2. Arnett is on that staff, so that might be your kind of internal replacement immediately if you're Florida State, which, you know, I'm not going to say is some kind of massive downgrade, but maybe a little bit of a down, but also still a really good coach that if he can kind of be in that model or that mode, that wouldn't be the worst thing. The other thing that helped, you know, kind of maybe eases me a little bit that you might get Tony for both the years that you originally intended is Tony just watched another alum go in there, not be given the resources to win. Is that a concern of his going out to UCLA? Will UCLA take things seriously enough for him to want to, risk it all is what I'll say with his first head coaching job out there. We talked a little bit about that UF game. We didn't go super deep into UF, but talked more about Billy big picture. Let's talk about this big picture, and then we'll move on to our last game. We'll kind of go through this quickly. But Cole, LSU's offense, 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 1 being not at all. So somewhere in the middle, I would assume. Concern with LSU's offense? I do think Brian Kelly went a little conservative once you knew DJ Lagway was just going to put the game on a silver platter for you. And so maybe you can give a little bit of grace there. But, man, they just don't look good through 3 games. The Clemson win, not as impressive as maybe we thought it was in week 1. Their offense continues to struggle, and they got some big games coming up. What are they on? They've got kind of a nobody this week, but then they got to go to the Grove. And, you know, Ole Miss will try and score as many points as they can. What are your thoughts on LSU's offense? Can that be fixed?
It's a 7 right now, and I think it can be fixed. And don't get me wrong, I think that there's definitely some things that are very correctable, but still, I mean, you can't be sitting here and talking about the last run of the game. The last run of the game is the reason why you had over 100 rushing yards. Yes. That's the reason. It's the reason why you averaged more than a 2.1 yards a play. It's a reason why Caden Durham's stat line actually looks somewhat decent compared to an overall day of a defense that was delivering for Florida that got screwed over by its offense, giving the ball literally right back on almost every single drive to Florida. That's where it is. I think the passing game is a little bit worrisome as well. I don't know if it's just the stubbornness of Nussmeier. I don't know if it's because of he doesn't feel like he has enough time to get plays downfield. He's rushing his throws. It just feels a little bit off, like stagnant. And he's not able to build that repertoire. And, the funny thing is that we talk so much about how in the last few years, we've asked ourselves the question of how many points does LSU have to score for its defense not to blow the game? Now the question is, how many drives do we have to stop offensively to give LSU's offense enough of a spot to be able to put this game away? Because that's really where we are at this point. Like, credit where credit's due. Blake Baker lost his starting linebacker, Whit Weeks, in the opening drive. He loses West Weeks a couple of drives later. And they still force 5 turnovers. They do give up 23 first downs. They still cannot be able to fully stop the passing attack, but they create opportunities to give the ball back to its offense, and it just constantly shoots itself in the foot. I don't know if it's the offensive line. I don't know if it's the play design. I don't know if it's just the overall negativity surrounding Nussmeier. I don't know if it's the lack of a solid run game. But there are things right now that just are so underwhelming that makes it feel like you constantly put yourself and shooting yourself in the foot. If you can't push the big dudes up front, trust the passing attack. If you can't move the ball on the ground, go back to the air game. But you have to realize that this game against Florida was given to you because of the insufficient ability of what DJ Langway did.
Yeah.
Ole Miss is not going to do that. Ole Miss is going to be able to throw the football down the field with ease. Alabama is going to be able to throw the football down the field with ease. Oklahoma is going to be able to win with a ground game and a passing attack.
A&M.
Arkansas is going to be able to do this. A&M is going to be able to do this. So it's a 7 because of this is your last game to work out the kinks, to figure out the little details. And if you can't do that, I just don't think it's possible. I don't believe this team is going to be able to be that threat that we saw against Clemson. Because the Clemson game at this point is looking a little bit fluky. And the offense against Louisiana Tech may just be the offense that you have this year. And it may be low-scoring affairs. You can still get to 10-2 and make the playoff. But it doesn't feel like you can have that national championship pedigree offensively.
Tom, any LSU thoughts before we move on to the last one?
Brian Kelly's an asshole, but
he's such a jerk after the game.
Which, we already knew that for many, many years at this point. I thought the reporter's question was pretty benign when you look at the transcript. He asked him, hey, what did you think of the offense? Maybe Brian Kelly thought he was walking into a different room and that he thought he was walking into the locker room or the coach's room, but instead he walked into the media room and was immediately asked questions about his uninspiring victory against a team that surrendered 5 interceptions in Florida. Credit to Florida's defense, to the points you guys were just making. That unit did not quit that entire game. I was so impressed by those kids at the end of the day who really did fight for Billy Napier. But man, I don't know what's up with LSU. The running game is not there. Garrett Nussmeier, I'm seeing in the comments section, has a little bit of Brett Favre in him. I kind of agree with that. And it's funny because last year everybody was saying, oh, you went from Jaden Daniels to Garrett Nussmeier, and it was just the continuity of that. Different athlete, of course, but his Heisman hopes, I'm not feeling that necessarily the way he's playing right now. LSU's just got to get right because this is much closer to the LSU offense of the early 2000s when everybody was like, it's the game of the century, LSU versus Alabama, and the final score would be 10-6, and I'd take a nap in the third quarter and wake up and be like, oh, this is boring, and there's a last second field goal. That's kind of what this feels like with LSU right now, and to the points Cole said, that might just be their lot in life. They're still going to have success this year, but man, they got to figure out some stuff and quick.
Let's move on to our last game. We'll do this quickly and get out of here. But Cole picked Georgia Tech. Tom, did you pick Georgia Tech too? I took Clemson.
I picked Clemson, and I was wrong. Yeah. And because we believe in accountability on the Power too.
Yep. So Tom and I picked Clemson here. Man, they're an absolute mess, but we will pull a line out of Pate's book and go winners first. Cole, take a victory lap for us. Georgia Tech wins on a walk-off. The execution on that walk-off field goal. Just
Perfect.
Beautiful. Absolute beautiful way to end the noon window. Cole, go ahead. Sorry.
24-21, just like I predicted it was gonna go. Haynes King, I don't even care if he throws the football the rest of the season. He is just a winner. He just has that gut dog mentality in him to be able to deliver drive after drive after drive. That offensive line creating opportunities for both him and Jamal Haynes to make plays behind the line of scrimmage and get upfield. The execution of the defense to put Cade Klubnik in a position where he knew they couldn't run the football efficiently, where he knew that they were taking away some of his best elements downfield. Yes, he did have that big touchdown pass to Bryant Wesco. Yes, there were some moments where it did feel like Clemson was getting back in the game, but this is all about culture. And I think that you saw that efficiently by the way that Brent Key didn't panic when he called the timeout and then sitting on the sidelines waiting for the play to end and then have the fire drill field goal play. Just his overall mentality of, we already got this locked up. That is the type of culture that you need at a place like Georgia Tech. That's the type of culture that you need at a place where there are not a lot of expectations year in and year out, and you think that this could be a special year to remember. Again, this is a fun team. This is a driven team based off of physicality. We need more coaches in college football who are head coaches that come from the offensive and defensive lines because of the mentality that they go through practice, the mentality they go through drills, and the way that you have urgency. That is what makes a team like Georgia Tech special. I told you guys this. They were going to be a playoff team. It's because of the persona they carry themselves with. They are always going to feel like that they are the underdog. They are always going to feel like that they're down, but they're never out. And when the moment arises, it's never too big for them. Credit where credit's due. This was a phenomenal game plan by Brent Key. More importantly, this was a date to remember for Georgia Tech football because if they acted like they've been here before. And you saw that on the fire drill field goal play. What a performance. What a game plan. Look out. The Yellow Jackets are here to stay in the world of college football. And rank them higher, you cowards, in the AP poll. They've earned it.
They're not cowards in the AP poll. They're just idiots, really, at the end of the day.
Georgia Tech, their schedule sets up pretty nicely. When you look at the ACC, it is week 3, and a lot of teams haven't even played an ACC game yet. I get it. When you look at their schedule, I think they're going to be favored in just about every ACC game that they have left. They have the second best odds to go to Charlotte and second best odds to thus win the thing with Miami at number 1. You look at the ACC, it's kind of the cannibalization that we'll see in the SEC is the complete opposite in the ACC. Clemson's schedule, somewhat favorable, minus the Louisville and Florida State games that they have to play. I'd still take them against Louisville at this moment, but we'll see. Florida State, Miami play each other, and then Miami's schedule, pretty favorable. I don't want to go crazy here. Cal doesn't play any of the top 4 teams in the ACC. They don't play Florida State. They don't play Clemson. They don't play Miami. They don't play Georgia Tech. Could they sneak in and around? There's going to be a lot of interesting things. There's going to be my prediction would be that there's going to be an 11-1 team that doesn't make it to Charlotte because of all that we have here in front of us in the ACC. Maybe like a 10-2 Georgia Tech with a loss to Georgia or something like that. So yeah, there's going to be some, in my opinion, that carnage that we'll see in the SEC won't happen in the ACC, and somebody's going to sneak into Charlotte without having to sneak into the playoff. Without having to go to Charlotte. Now again, teams could lose games they're not supposed to. I understand that. I'm not saying Cal goes or anything like that, but schedule set up pretty weird in the ACC this year, and a lot of teams have a chance to win a lot of games at the top of this conference.
There is a strong possibility Georgia Tech is undefeated by the time they play Georgia, in my opinion. I think the NC State game is the only real speed bump left for them. It's at Raleigh, so I think that's going to be a challenging game. It's going to be a good game. Haynes King's health is the most important thing the remainder of the season. Like we jokingly were like more on sleeper for his rushing yards. I think it was 48.5. He crosses over 100 yards. It's an old school offense in that they're relying on 10 hats on 11. My concern, based on what they were able to be last year with Haynes King, is I think they had better weapons at wide receiver. I think that's very clear. So they don't necessarily have that same explosivity in the passing game, but they got the job done. Haynes King gets the job done. They need to make sure that the backup quarterback, Aaron Philo, is ready to go in the event that Haynes King goes down. And I think they need to consider in this middle part of their schedule where there are winnable games, trying to get him more involved as a runner, same offensive style, those sorts of things, because all you need is Haynes King bubbled wrapped so that you can handle Georgia at the end of the year, because that's going to be a big, big task the way Georgia played against Tennessee. But Georgia Tech's lined up nicely. I was very happy to be wrong about Clemson in that respect. And Clemson, it's like, I don't know, man. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. Is Cade Klubnik better than Charlie Whitehurst?
Yes.
By a lot?
I just said yes. I didn't say by a lot. What I will say is, like, the glass half full type of mentality. I had Clemson in the playoff at 11-2, and I had them losing to LSU and Georgia Tech in the regular season. So far, for me, Clemson's up to par with where I predicted them to be. Now, have they looked the way I thought they were going to look? Not at all. And that's what worries me. But so far, I predicted they would lose to LSU and they would find a way to lose to Georgia Tech. So everything is still ahead of them. But things have got to get better offensively. It cannot be this dreadful of a passing performance and this limited of a rushing attack if you want to stand a chance, especially with what you have defensively.
They've got SMU left on the schedule. They've got Florida State on the schedule, and then they're at South Carolina to end the season. Got to see what happens with Lenora Sellers and his health long term as well, speaking of quarterback health. But yeah, it's not an easy road for Clemson remaining.
Yeah, at Louisville as well. On a road ACC game. Florida State game obviously looks tougher for them. The South Carolina one maybe a little easier than you thought, but dang, if their schedule, I mean, their margin for error is pretty thin at this moment. Kind of like Notre Dame, like we talked about earlier. 2 losses in 3 weeks, not a great way to start a season for anybody. That's it. Wednesday, we'll preview some stuff. We appreciate those that tuned in and hung out with us. If you watched over on X, do us a favor and go subscribe on YouTube so that we can see your comments. Always appreciated there. We appreciate the interaction, those that hang out with us in the chat and those that argue with each other in the chat too. It all works for me. It all helps. So TJ Pittinger, Tom Hannifan, Cole Thompson. We'll be back Wednesday at noon to talk about Week 4 in college football. And unlike game day, we will talk about more than just the Florida and Miami game. So thank you guys for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.